The charismatic man in the black and white photograph is Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founder of the Republic of Turkey in 1923. He defined Turkey's grand strategy to be revolutionary growth towards the highest level of human civilization through peaceful development. This definition sets a moving target for Turkey that currently should incorporate the democratic standards of the European Union. The other gentleman in the color picture is Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the current leader of Atatürk's Republican People's Party, CHP. In 2023, Turkey will complete its first century and will begin its second. The presidential and parliamentary elections scheduled for June 2023 are critical and will determine the direction of Turkey for a long time to come. Kılıçdaroğlu is the de facto leader of the six-party opposition alliance and its most likely presidential candidate. On December 3, 2022, the CHP announced its manifesto for Turkey's second century with a major public event in Istanbul. Before evaluating this vision statement, let's briefly look at the previous centuries and try to get a sense of the historical context. Republic of Turkey is the successor to the Ottoman Empire, which was a Middle Eastern as well as a European state. Like others in history, the Ottoman Empire expanded, stagnated, and declined during its 6 centuries. It died primarily because it was too conservative and could not catch up with Europe's Renaissance, scientific revolution, enlightenment, industrial revolution, and democratization. Realizing, especially on battlefields, that the empire could no longer compete, successive Ottoman sultans have tried to reform the state and society with the European model starting in the 1700s. Ottoman modernization has been compared with the Meiji Restoration in Japan. In both cases, modernization was not imposed by a foreign imperial master in a humiliating way, but was voluntarily adopted by legitimate administrations for rational and practical reasons. A Turkish proverb confidently advises one to kiss the wrist which you cannot bend, implying that success should be respected and learned from. In contrast to this indigenous political culture, the government in Turkey during the last decade seemed to act under the influence of an imported and alien anti-colonial Islamism. This led to a deviation of Turkey from its grand strategy of aiming the highest level of civilization. Democracy is not only a political system, but also a particular way of life. Hence, it takes time for a traditional culture to learn and attune to democracy. Often, bitter lessons are needed. The antithesis of Atatürk's modernization and civilizational progress program has traditionally been reactionary Islamism. It instrumentalized religion for political power and preached to the society a superficial return to a medieval lifestyle. Its recent negative experiences have vaccinated Turkey against extremist ideologies such as Islamism and authoritarian nationalism. In all likelihood, the table of six will decisively win the 2023 elections and Turkey will return to its path of democratization and development. Kılıçdaroğlu and the CHP are calling for a democratic and counter-kleptocratic reconstruction of politics for sustainable economic development. The declaration of the call to the second century is a manifesto that was announced to the public by the CHP chairman Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu in 2020. Some of its goals were a strengthening parliamentary system, the resolution of the Kurdish problem under the leadership of the Grand National Assembly, merit-based systems in state administration, enacting of political ethics laws. The public procurement law will be rearranged to ensure competition and transparency. The education system will be restructured, and a new Middle East Peace and Cooperation Organization will be established. Call to the second century was also the title of CHP's presentation of its updated vision for Turkey in a large conference hall in Istanbul on December 3, 2022. The CHP leader, Kılıçdaroğlu, introduced via online connection Dr. Jeremy Rifkin, US economist and author, as his new industrial transformation chief advisor, and noted that Rifkin was Merkel's industrial technologies consultant in Germany, and that he also served as an advisor to the President Xi Jinping of China. Rifkin talked about economic changes in history, climate change, Turkey's role in the Mediterranean basin, and the Third Industrial Revolution. Respected economists from prestigious universities such as the MIT, University of Chicago, and Bilkent University have made strong research-based presentations. Here, Professor Ufuk Akçiğit from the University of Chicago compares per capita national income in the US and in Turkey and shows the relative decline in Turkey during the last decade. Here, Professor Daron Acemoğlu from the MIT explains his argument that successful development proceeds along a path of balance between the power of the state and the power of the society. After additional online academic presentations, party speaker Faik Öztrak summarized the CHP vision document, promising rationalization of the central bank, termination of politically motivated and irrational banking practices, termination of pageantry and the squandering of public resources, implementation of financial rules, divestment of the Turkey Wealth Fund, acceleration of EU membership talks, and a new generation development policy. An important election promise of the opposition alliance is to return the office of the presidency to its humble but aesthetically pleasing original building. An overbearing palace doesn't fit into the democratic and egalitarian vision of Turkey's opposition to authoritarian one-man rule. Öztrak said, "We need rules, not rulers." CHP General Secretary Selin Sayekböke stated that they will solve many problems in the economy by transforming production and promised clean development with social justice. Hacer Fogo, coordinator of CHP's Poverty Solidarity Office, announced that the era of strong social state and equal opportunity has begun. Turkey will be governed not by a single person, but by a merit-based system, said Kılıçdaroğlu in his concluding remarks. He detailed his planned policies regarding technological investments, transformation of industrial infrastructure, devolution of wealth, fair distribution of welfare, and strong social state. When Kılıçdaroğlu confidently announced that the $418 billion stolen from Turkey's citizenry by dirty capital will be collected, excitement and motivation peaked in the hall. At this stage, let's open a parenthesis and look at some definitions from the USA Decleptification Guide. Grand corruption is when political elites steal large sums of public funds or otherwise abuse power for personal or political advantage. Transnational corruption happens when corruption crosses borders, involves global networks, and employs sophisticated schemes to siphon off the wealth of a country from its rightful owners, the people. Strategic corruption is when a government weaponizes corrupt practices as a tenet of its foreign policy. Kleptocracy refers to a government controlled by officials who use political power to appropriate the wealth of their nation. Decleptification is the process of dismantling entrenched kleptocratic structures, networks, and norms, and replacing them with governing institutions that deliver transparency, accountability, and inclusion during historic windows of overwhelming popular demand for reform or transition. The Corruption Perceptions Index 2021 shows the strong correlation between the absence of democracy and corruption. Comparative studies suggest that particular conjectures of events, such as leaks, scandals, or economic crises, occasionally increase the aggregate political will for decleptification in a country and open a window of opportunity. Careful preparation and good timing are necessary to benefit from these temporary windows. Once they close, political demand for decleptification quickly fizzles out. Currently, the window of opportunity for decleptification is wide open in Turkey because a crushing economic crisis is coupled with the open pageantry and wastefulness of political and bureaucratic elites. The opposition should work hard to keep that window open and to take advantage of it in the 2023 elections. Enormous amounts of developing country resources have been stolen and smuggled to foreign tax havens by corrupt officials. The greed of the few dooms hundreds of millions of human lives to be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. I will shortly publish a separate video on transnational kleptocracy and an emerging global anti-kleptocracy alliance. Subscribe if you are interested. Kılıçdaroğlu called out to the local oligarchs. We will bring back the money you smuggled out to foreign countries. I wrote down the $418 billion stolen as debt. I will take this money from you within the law. You cannot get away with it, he said. From Manhattan, New York, Kılıçdaroğlu said, I will ask them to account for every penny stolen from you. I will give to the farmers the money they transferred abroad over shell foundations. It is obvious that Kılıçdaroğlu is preparing to take advantage of the currently open window of opportunity in Turkey with a major decleptification initiative. I'm addressing you from Chelsea in London today, says Kılıçdaroğlu. Gangs who smuggle their black money from Turkey have lined up their real estates in this district. They say when Mr. Kemal comes to power, we'll have a place to escape to. Look, you gangs, I'm on the street you are trying to escape to right now. I know very well what you are doing and will not leave even a penny of our treasury with you. I say it so clearly, so openly. Kılıçdaroğlu doesn't mince his words, but let me have a few words to the gang of five from here. You are the copies in Turkey of the system that Putin established for his oligarchs. Whatever the person in the palace has learned from Putin, he wants to apply it with you. You bought neighborhoods in England, you bought villas, you have established banks, you carry your money there, and you continue to do so. Do you think your money will be safe there? Kılıçdaroğlu now has a suitable conjecture of international and domestic dynamics to form effective teams of financial investigators and lawyers to collect stolen public funds and to forge a global anti-kleptocratic alliance. I will conclude this presentation by recommending two YouTube videos, the links of which I'm including below. The first one is by Atilla Yeşilada, a respected financial analyst, and explains why Erdoğan will never win another election. The second video by Alper Coşkun and Sinan Ülgen carefully analyzes prospects for political change in Turkey and their implications for Turkish foreign policy. They offer a snapshot of the opposition parties' foreign policy outlooks, wherein the general inclination of opposition is in favor of reasserting Turkey's NATO identity and furthering the goal of EU membership. Atatürk developed his progressive vision in real-life struggles with the dogmatic and reactionary mentalities around him. His call for dynamic adaptation to emerging challenges requires free thinkers who can operate well under uncertainty. Leaving behind the certainty and mental comfort of traditional culture and flourishing at the face of fundamental unknowns was a challenge for Turkey's people. During the first century of the Republic of Turkey, decades were lost in political experimentation, but vital lessons were learned. Atatürk's vision of peaceful civilizational development will definitely continue to enlighten and guide Turkey into its second century.